America's auto enthusiast program. This is Auto World. And now, here's your host, Bob Long.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here for another hour of Auto World. In this hour of the broadcast, we're going to continue our very special series with Dan Watson. I just got a message from Don Jones. That messed me up. Don, we'll talk to you later. We're going to talk to Dan in this hour. Dan is our man when it comes to lubrication specialties. He has over 25 years of experience. He used to work in the nuclear submarine world, so that makes him an interesting character right there. But above and beyond all that, this gentleman knows more about oil than I think anybody else there in the country. Welcome, Dan. How are you doing? Are you with us, Dan?
Okay. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, there we go.
So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I thought for a minute you were going to give me that Italian name, Don Watson, the Don of oil,
That's right. I could have gone that way.
You could have. I was ready for it if you were, so it's all right. No, it's a great evening, and as always, it's good to be, as they say, up and at 'em and enjoying life.
Yeah, absolutely, and seems to be getting a little bit warmer in our neck of the woods. We've had kind of a cold winter down here. Not that we should complain.
No, I have to say that for the first time in a number of years, I've got about a 30-foot tall avocado tree, and it got most of the leaves on it. We're going to have to see how much there's any other cold damage to it, but that's the first time in at least 10 years that it got cold enough to knock the leaves off the avocado tree.
Wow. Well, that tells you something right there.
Yeah. So we're going to, I think, just answer some questions tonight, aren't we, Bob? See if some
that's what we're going to do.
We'll try to just answer a few of the questions that we've accumulated and encourage people to pick up that phone and give us a call, or they can send a quick email to you at your email address and or call you on your phone. And so we'll just, why don't you give them those numbers, Bob, so they know what we're doing, and give a call in if they can, and we'll just answer some questions.
Absolutely. Well, the telephone number is easy. It's 855-660-4261. That's 855-660-4261. Email, a very good way to get to me. And email is bob@autoworldradio.com or bob@boblongradio.com. We kind of use that one as a bit of a backup, but it's good to have it. And we're working on getting some sort of technology where we'll be able to read texts, since more and more people seem to be getting into that these days.
Yes, that's a fact. So, yeah, we on some of the other shows, radios that I'm on, texting is a big deal these days. Everybody's got the smartphones, and they can just throw in a 5 or 6 word text and hit send, and they've asked their question. So all that electronics is, we can communicate wildly if we just had something to say. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We'll have to start pushing to get more calls, because there's nothing like getting calls live on the air. Of course, a lot of our radio affiliates are running us on tape delay, so we can't expect them to call in during the show. But if they have a question, they still can send one off to you or send one off to me.
Right, and hear it on the next show. And then also tells our other listeners out there, when you think you got a question, just think. You have to go ahead and ask that question. For those people that aren't listening live, they are depending on you to ask your question. So pick up that phone and dial it in there and ask a question and get an answer, because there's a lot of stuff that I get asked all the time. So I know there's questions out there. And, I've got some here, so I'll just start out, Bob, with the first question. And I'm taking these, folks, by the way, from my website, thelubepage.com, where people have put these questions into me. So you can go to the Lube page and put the question there, and you're going to get an answer. And some of your questions will end up being answered here on Auto World Radio also. But not all of them, because there's too many. But some of the ones I think that have an application to several more people out there. So this one question that I got, the gentleman writes in, he says, "Hi, Dan. I use Amsoil Signature Series 5W20 on a 2017 Kia Sportage with a 2.4-liter, this is important, GDI engine." Now, that's for a gasoline direct injected engine. It says, that is the recommended oil, but the manual states that I could use 530 in the same temperature range. Would it be better to go with the 5W30 because of fuel dilution in the oil? I have 15,000 miles on the car now. So that's the question. Let me kind of expand a little on his question for our listeners. A GDI, or gasoline direct injected engine, is an engine that is maybe 5-6 years in the marketplace, maybe 7. And what it is it's a directly injected engine. What does that mean to the listener? Well, it means that there's an injector in each one of the cylinders in the same way that you have direct injected diesel engines. This is a direct injected gasoline engine. Different than having either a carburetor, a throttle body, or multi-port fuel injector in the intake manifold. So it's different, and it creates a bit of a problem, but it's easily taken care of. But what it is, those injectors are not perfect, and sometimes they'll leak some raw fuel, raw gasoline, into the crankcase oil. So what you end up with is a little bit of fuel dilution in these gasoline engines that we're not used to seeing, because most of the time we worry about fuel dilution in a diesel engine, but not in the gasoline engine.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so now we've got these direct injected gasoline engines, and they're powerful, by the way. If you've got one, you'll notice it has more power for its size than the other standard carbureted or fuel-injected engines. And we have to look at this GDI and understand that if there's going to be some fuel dilution, we're probably actually better running a little bit thicker oil, so that if the fuel dilutes the oil and thins it out slightly, you'll still have at least a 20-weight oil for protection. But if you start with a 20-weight and then get some fuel dilution, couple percent fuel, maybe a little bit more, wow, now maybe you're in the bottom end of the 20-weight scale, maybe even starting to head towards the 16 scale, and that may be a little bit too thin to give you maximum protection, because that engine is producing quite a bit of power as a direct injected engine. So my answer to this gentleman was to use the 5W30 because he has a GDI engine, and that in doing that, he'll be just making sure that he's offsetting any amount of fuel dilution that could be causing his oil to run a little thinner than what he's putting into it. So is it mandatory for you to do that? No. If you're out there running a 20-weight oil in your GDI engine, I'm not saying that you're causing any harm, but if you want to be more cautious and have a little bit better backup protection, then run the 30-weight oil in the GDI engine.
Perfect segue time. I know we have a bunch of other questions to answer, but if you'd like to get in, Daniel's answering the phones at 855-660-4261. This is Auto World. Don't go away.
Giving your radio a broadcasted tune-up. This is Auto World, and your host, Bob Long.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks very much for joining me here today. That's basically half an hour and you want to go and reboot because there's a different level of intensity. Let's talk about something we've never talked about here on the show. This is some filters. The folks at Mopar did you well. Some wheels. Let's see all the way down the wheels. A goes up from there.
So, Bob, we on?
Yep. Just my computer's giving me trouble. All right, we'll hit it over that a few times. Dan, we got another question coming in. Why don't we take this one?
Sure.
I deal with a lot of small engineers and started reading about Amsoil with 20 weight engine oil when Advantage doesn't this over a racing oil. I mainly use John Deere 30WX. I don't have any engines that start or use around 700 hours. In these small engines, they went to Schaefer 2030 oil. It's a racing oil, and racing is a proponent of forcing your term to make more blood on its own. But that sounds a little iffy there, Dan. I don't know.
Well, his question is a little muddled, I think, but what he's really trying, I think, to ask, and sometimes you have to sort out these questions. Folks, it's live, so we have to read them the best we can, is you got somebody that's started using Amsoil. It looks like he might be using the Amsoil 10W30, and he wonders, could he use racing oil? Okay. And then I think he's telling us that he uses John Deere 30 weight oil, and he's had an engine that was started using oil somewhere around 700 hours. So if I understood the question, he really wants to know, what about using this 10W30 Schaefer racing oil? Would that be better, since, gosh, it's for racing? Wouldn't it be better for his small engines?
You would think.
And it's not really true, and here's why. And this is something that's important for all aspects of oil that the listeners out there need to understand, is that when you make lubricating products, you actually tailor them with the additive package for the application, specific application they're going to. Now, sometimes you can cross that over and use some oils in different applications, and that'll work fine. But small engines are not anything like a racing engine. And a small engine, if it's running 1,800, sometimes you might have some that'll run higher than that on constant RPM, maybe 2,500, maybe even potentially 3,000 RPM. That's getting pretty high. But so these small engines are not high RPM engines. But when you go to a racing engine, it might be running 8,500 RPM. So you've got to tailor additives to really be able to handle those high RPM, high horsepower, high torque loads that racing engine puts out. So you'd say, well, we just have tremendous overkill for this little engine, and you would, if you ran it, you'd have tremendous overkill. But the other thing is that it might not actually have enough anti-foaming agents in it for a small engine. And so you could end up with a lot of what you would think of as foaming oil, right? And foaming oil does not lubricate. It's just oil foam. It's not like real film of oil. So you could end up having too much foam in the oil that's not good. And the zinc and phosphorus level that you have in a racing engine is so high that you might actually get some of this into the combustion chamber of the small engine and just foul out your plug with high zinc and phosphorus levels in there. So in general, racing oil should be used strictly for racing applications, and don't try to use it over in standard applications, especially small engines, okay? There's when he had the question about started using some oil around 700 hours, I wasn't really sure of his conditions that he was talking about there. But a lot of small engines, you have to be really careful. If one time you run the oil much longer than what it can stand, the ring wear can be really quick. And if the ring wear gets pretty quick, you're going to leave a lot of oil up in the combustion chamber, and you're going to have a lot of blow-by, causing more problems with the oil itself. So in general, the short answer is don't use racing oil in your small engine. The longer answer is if you can actually get an oil that is designed for small engine application that has higher anti-foaming and the right amount of zinc and phosphorus for the little tappet valve system that's in that application, then you're going to have, as we say in the industry, you're going to have the right oil in the right place at the right time. And that will give you the right lubrication. Okay, so that's the short and the long answer is no. Don't use the racing oil in a small engine. It's not going to actually help you, and in some cases, it could be detrimental to that small engine operation. So hopefully that gets his question answered. I kind of expanded it a little to make sure that people would be able to get the full gist of what's being asked there and address the whole issue of racing oil in small engines.
Racing oil.
Yeah, the racing oil is tailored for those. I mean, you're talking about even these little mini stocks and stuff that run out on the quarter mile and half mile tracks we have locally here around Orlando. Those things are running 8,400 RPM. And that's in a four-cylinder, what amounts to a Ford Pinto engine. So that's a lot of RPM, and you've got to really have your oil fortified to handle that type of application.
At 855-660-4261, I screened it a little momentary blink on me. So maybe we should make sure that connection is solid, and we'll pick up the question on the other side. You're listening to Auto World with Dan Watson. He's our certified lubrication specialist, and myself, Bob Long. Don't go away. We're coming right back.
Do you want to be
You're listening to Auto World with Bob Long.
Yes, indeed. We're live on great radio stations around the world via the internet, TNLive.com. And Watson is with us. He's our certified hero when it comes to all things synthetic oil. Now, truly, he has more than 25 years worth of experience. He's also one of the largest Amsoil dealers in all of North America. And we're asking you to give me a tap by sending me an email, bob@autoworldradio.com, bob@boblongradio.com, or you can text Dan directly, not text, we're working on that, but you can email Dan directly at dan@thelubepage.com. Let's go back to questions here. And this one just came in, kind of an anecdotal question, but the gentleman's name is Eugene, and he wants to know a little bit more about Amsoil. He says he's heard about it for a couple of decades, but he's never tried it before. He's got a Ford F150, doesn't say what engine, but he'd like to know a little bit more about the company.
Well, that's an excellent question. Amsoil is a privately held corporation, independent group, family-owned, out of Duluth, Minnesota. Actually, out of Superior, Wisconsin, but Duluth is the big city right across the tip of the bay there at the end of Lake Superior up in Minnesota. And Amsoil was originated in 1971. The founder was Albert Amatuzio, who was a jet fighter pilot and a chemical engineer. And so Al set out to prove or determine if it was possible to use the same kind of oil that we used in his jet fighter, his combustion turbine engine in that jet fighter, if that oil couldn't be used in an automotive application. So he set out and began that trek and developed his first 10W40 motor oil that was API classified, and that was in 1971. And the company began to grow and grow and grow. And they went from that one product to well over 100 different products. And I say 100 different products because I just lump all the various viscosities of oil into one category, not into individual products. But
Sure.
so Amsoil is a maker of synthetic engine oil. They do not make petroleum. They don't make a so-called synthetic blend. They are making synthetic lubrication products. They've been doing this consistently now, I guess we're going on 45 years, and actually over 45 years now, yeah. So a long period of time, and the quality of Amsoil is well established, and particularly up in the Midwest, in Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan. These areas, Amsoil was larger earlier on and is really well known, and it is now available throughout all of North America and also in Australia and some places around the world. Amsoil has gone from let's just say a couple thousand square feet when Al started the business to about 1.5 million square feet, 1.5 million square feet of production capacity with a rail spur in Superior, where they now have an ultra-modern blending plant for where they make all of their different oil products. Now, they are not a refiner. They have to buy the ingredients to make their oil from the chemical companies in the United States, of which they buy large amounts of chemicals from Mobil Chemical Corporation, from Lubrizol, and from Ethel, those large chemical companies. So
Sure.
It's an American success story. Al was written up. He passed away here a couple of years ago, but he was written up by the oil industry, not him, but Mobil, Chevron, Texaco. He is in their Hall of Fame as one of the true American innovators, and I think it was well earned. This guy started a business with a hand loader that you had to hand load your oil cans with it when he started, and now they have the capacity to run off thousands of quarts of oil per hour on their production line. So it is a marvelous success story, the kind of stuff that it's still, what you call the American dream, having an idea, having the guts to go after it, put everything into it. He almost went bankrupt, put all of his own money into starting the company and making it work, and now it's very well recognized, successful, not big. I mean, when you talk about oil companies, we're talking about Mobil Oil Company. They declared some, I forget what it was, but a few years back, they had a $90 billion profit that they declared.
Wow.
So, that's a big company, okay? We're talking about a nice size, a multi-million-dollar, close-held family corporation that produces just outstanding products, and that's what they're going to continue to do. There's not a way that you look at a company like Amsoil and say, well, they're going to threaten the petroleum industry to run them out of business. Not on the best day. But what Amsoil is going to do is provide a product for people that will settle for nothing less than the best lubrication that they can buy, and the technologically advanced lubrication that Amsoil produces to match up with these technologically advanced vehicles. And that market's big. There's a lot of people. I'll just address those people that are listening. There's a lot of you out there who really are conscious of quality, and that's what you seek and you get. And I can tell you from doing Amsoil for now 27 years that you never feel like you've got change coming. You buy your products from Amsoil. They are under-advertised and over-capable. They will do more than they're typically advertised to do. And so you get these products, they work, and you know you got your money's worth. Feel like it was money well spent. And I've got people that I sold some of my first quarts of oil to in 1991 that are still my personal customers, and they have never looked back.
Great feeling.
So it's a product that I actually enjoy selling. And since we're on that topic for just a moment, if there's anyone listening to this broadcast who has ever thought they'd like to get into a secondary business, something to start on, I started this as a secondary business. Obviously now it's my main livelihood, profession, everything about it. You know, as they say, I must bleed Amsoil, okay? But here's the thing. We're still an expanding company, and we're looking for independent dealers. And if you go to my website, thelubepage.com, and you tell me you're interested in being a dealer, you will not be at a better place, because what you need to understand about coming into the Amsoil business is who your sponsor is 9 million% important to you. You need to make sure that your sponsor, whoever you sign up under, is the person that can give you the help, assistance, coaching to build a business. And you can check all my guys and my references. They're all some pretty strong individuals that are in my particular group of dealers. So I'm looking for new dealers. And if you're interested in something like that, let me know. Go to the website.
Wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
855-660-4261 or Bob at AutoWorldRadio.com. This is Auto World. We'll take a quick time out.
10 miles east of the highway, hot sparks burning the night away. Two lips touching together.
My pappy said, son, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln.
Giving your radio a broadcasted tune-up. This is Auto World and your host, Bob Long.
Have you heard the story of the hot rod race Ford and Lincoln was set in the face?
Here, as we have each and every week at this time, Mr. Dan Watson, with more than 25 years of lubrication experience, one of the top Amsoil dealers in all of North America. And why don't we go back to one of your questions, Dan?
Okay. Well, I've got one here that gentleman is asking about something which is always dear to my heart. He says, I own a Ford Focus 2012. My owner's manual says that I should use a Motocraft 5W20 blend synthetic. My question is, what if I use full synthetic oil? Would it damage my car in the long term? Well, this is the thing that I still find, is that somebody would actually be concerned if synthetic oil would damage their car. That's kind of like if I have a protein shake, will it damage me, right? Anyway, get to the real answer here. No, full synthetic is the way to go. Synthetic blends are just unreliable, and I don't mean to say that there's not some advantage from blending some synthetic in, but when you buy that quart of oil that says synthetic blend on it, you have no idea nor any guarantee from any governmental agency or independent agency of just how much synthetic is in that bottle. Could be 5%, could be up to 50%, but you don't know, and they're not required to tell you, and there's nobody that monitors what they're doing. So I don't think that is the thing that I want to buy. If I'm going to buy something, I want to buy the full synthetic. I want to buy something that is real. I don't want to buy something that has a supposed blend and it can't even be verified what my blend is. If it's worthwhile to add synthetic to the oil to create a blend, then it's worthwhile to go all the way to a full synthetic. Now, that being said, let me tell listeners a couple things to look for. If you have a blend, it doesn't mean anything. You don't know what it is. You don't know whether it's 20%, 50%, 5%. Now, if you see a bottle of oil that says full synthetic, that's fine. It's probably mostly synthetic. But when you see a bottle that's labeled 100% synthetic oil, now the regulators step in and say, if you're going to put 100% on that label, it has to be 100% synthetic. If you will notice on the Amsoil, 3 lines of Amsoil synthetic engine oil, what they call the OE or original equipment, that's the low grade, the XL, which is the mid grade, and the Signature Series, which is the top grade, right on the label it says 100% synthetic. So that's the one thing that the regulators will come down on. They came down on Mobil many years ago for labeling their oil as 100% synthetic when, in fact, it was, believe it or not, I mean, I'm not knocking Mobil here, it was about 97%.
Yeah.
But that wasn't good enough. If you say 100%, it's got to be 100%.
Yeah.
So to the listeners out there, this labeling stuff can tell you some things. When you see something that says synthetic, doesn't say full synthetic, doesn't say 100% synthetic, just says synthetic. Well, that's as bad as the blend, because it doesn't really mean that it's full synthetic, or that it's full synthetic means, quite frankly, that it's probably going to be 85% of it at least will be synthetic, because when you mix oil, you have to put additives into the oil, the things that are like anti-wear, antioxidant, anti-foaming, these additives. If you buy them pre-mixed from some of the big chemical companies, they will mix them in a petroleum base. So when you put that in with your synthetic base, if it constitutes about 15% of the oil, then you're 85% synthetic and about 15% petroleum. And that was because your carrier oil for your additives came in a petroleum base. Amsoil actually orders the synthetic base for the additives to be mixed in by the company like Lubrizol before they send them in what they call their certified additive package. And so since it's mixed in synthetic and it goes into a synthetic base, it's 100% synthetic, okay? So, but seeing something that just says synthetic and doesn't say anything else, you're depending upon the good auspices of the company that's really much synthetic, so be careful. And labeling does matter, because there are companies that have been fined big time, and some run out of business because they fraudulently labeled their bottles. So you have to use common sense as a buyer. You're the only one that will protect your engine, because you're the one that's going to suffer the consequences if it wears out prematurely or something happens to it. So learn a little bit about what you're doing. This wonderful internet we have now, you can go on there and you can learn a lot of things. I encourage you to go to the lubepage.com and learn a whole lot about oil and ask me questions and become a little bit smart about what you're doing, so that when you go into your oil change place, you can say, nope, I don't want that. I want this other oil. Whatever it happens to be that you've decided has a higher quality that's going to take care of your vehicle. Because, folks, the engine under the hood in these newer cars is so high-tech.
Yeah.
It is such a marvelous piece of machinery with high-tech, the machining characteristics. These things are machined, the parts, by computer-operated lathes that cut tolerances to what we would have called we call them a blueprint and balanced engine back in the 60s, meaning that it was so finely cut and things. Well, the standard automobile is built to a higher standard of machining than those cars were that we thought were perfected with that technique. And so you've got this marvelous machine. You're going to play an integral part in protecting it and getting long life and service. If you really use good lubrication and take care of these modern cars, they ought to last you 350 to 400,000 miles with little trouble. But if you use inferior products, you'll probably be in trouble at 150 to 180,000 miles. You'll be starting to have problems. Things like compression starting to get low, knocking noises in the engine. But if you lubricate them right, these things are tremendous engines. They'll go on, like I said. Some of them, I know people that have driven some of these vehicles 900,000 miles in a delivery vehicle with Amsoil 10W30 Signature Series engine oil. 900,000 miles the engine went. Folks, you cannot skimp on oil. It is the lifeline of your engine. You will either have a long, carefree existence or a short life in trouble, depending upon how well you lubricate it and how well you maintain it. It's just that simple. We could go into a lot more things that covers your transmission, another critical component. Building cars now where they say no maintenance ever required on the transmission. Well, that's an interesting thing. There's not a single oil company that would produce a synthetic transmission fluid that they would guarantee forever. So if the manufacturer's doing that, what they really mean is guaranteed to outlast the warranty. That's what they mean. So
exactly. Yeah. And they have that down to a science.
Yeah, so what you need to do is understand that regardless of what a manufacturer is saying, under most circumstances, around 100,000 miles, no matter what anybody says, it's time to change that transmission fluid that came from the factory. And they may say that you don't have to check it and there's not a way to do it, but all the shops know how to change transmission fluid in those transmissions as well. So don't go past 100,000 miles. You're playing with danger, and automatic transmission is almost as expensive as the motor when you have to replace one.
It sure is.
Yeah,
and it's only going to get more expensive. I interviewed somebody a little bit earlier today from Ford on the 2018 Mustang, which, like a number of other vehicles within Ford, and GM has got the Camaro running this, a 10-speed automatic. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, and the thing is, again, this is marvelous technology. This is beyond our thought process, and it's expensive, and it's a terrible thing to waste, terrible thing to tear up, because you're not going to get it typically fixed at the transmission shop. All they're going to tell you is we can drop that one out, put another one in. And this is your cost, $4,500 or something to put in one of these 10-speed marvelous pieces of machinery. And what is its lifeline again? It's still moving parts. It is still a torque converter. It needs high grade. And by the way, Bob, they're using thinner transmission fluid than they were before. So they've reduced the viscosity of transmission fluid. It's going to run at higher temperatures than it used to run. And all this is supposed to work out with rot gut fluid. You can't use the junk. Use the quality product in your car. Absolutely. Visit thelubepage.com. Dan, give out your email and telephone real quick for us. Telephone 800-370-2986. Email Dan Watson at thelubepage.com. Thank you, my friend. Great job as usual.
Folks, this is Bob Long, host of Auto World Radio, with great news. We have a new sponsor, Dan Watson, who distributes Amsoil throughout the USA and Canada. Dan is one of Amsoil's largest distributors. He's a former U.S. Navy nuclear specialist and a certified lubrication specialist with 25-plus years of experience. You can listen to Dan every Sunday evening live at 6 p.m. Eastern Time here on GCNlive.com. Get all of your questions answered and ensure you get the best lubrication for your car, truck, boat, or really anything that moves. In 1972, Amsoil pioneered synthetic lubrication, and Amsoil continues to provide the best lubrication money can buy. Get the best advice for the best results. Contact Dan at thelubepage.com. That's thelubepage.com. Or call 800-370-2986. That's 800-370-2986.